Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for One Piece episode 912. Pacing wise, this episode was was probably the slower ones. The big thing about this episode, though, was basically just Kaido flexing and showing us how much of a complete and near unstoppable monster he really is. I mean, obviously, he didn't actually do anything until the end, but it just shows just his presence alone is enough to show how much of a monster he is. Um, and it was like I said last week, like it's a complete and utter game over when Kaido appears like that. Like there's just no stopping him. The only difference this week is that Luffy got a first-hand look at Kaido's power. And although art and animation on the episode as a whole was decent, they really made sure to pull out their best effort on Kaido himself, because the fluidity and impact of this fire breath was insane. It actually made me feel like I was practically right there in the middle of it. And now here's the thing with basically the scene of seeing Luffy like watch Kaido do what he does to his friends and his crew and whatnot. Um, like the thing about what Luffy like witnessing what Kaido does represents is that in as Law said, this in a way is Luffy's fault. I mean, if we're looking, obviously there's blame to share between what happens starting at Punk Hazard and Dressrosa all the way to leading here, but thinking just within the box of what Luffy's done here in Wano, just within the realm scope of Luffy's actions here in Wano, a lot of it does fall on his shoulders. And because, I mean, we know Luffy's a kind person. That much has been proven time and again. But the thing is, at the same time, in this particular instance, his actions did have consequences. Like everything he's done, it only angered Kaido more and more and more, and until it reached this boiling point. And as we see in this particular instance, his actions did have consequences, and they're what endangered his crew. I mean, obviously obviously the Straw Hats are still alive, but there's really a lesson that Luffy needs to learn from this. Luffy has been basically treating The thing is, Luffy has been treating ever since entering the New World, Luffy has been treating every single encounter as if it's the same, which, he's been treating every single encounter like it's the same, but really, they're not. The New World is entirely different from pre-time skip stuff. Everything in the New World, the danger, the threat, everything about the New World is escalated. And Luffy just kind of treats it like it's basically like every other encounter, but he can't do that. He has to treat this with a lot more urgency. Otherwise, he will legitimately lose. Otherwise, he is going to not only legitimately lose his crew, but he will lose his life. That's the thing Luffy needs to take away from this, is that he really has to start, I'm not saying for his character to change or anything, but he has to start taking things a little bit more into context, and really start thinking, okay, how are my actions going to affect everything in the long term? Luffy didn't do that. He really didn't do that He didn't really do that the moment he stepped foot in Wano. He just did what he normally does. And so, yeah. And obviously with Luffy like being prepared to confront Kaido, he he's not gonna make it. Okay, he's gonna straight up lose. That's probably I don't think that's a spoiler saying it, but Luffy is he's not gonna win this. Which again, I think I think it's gonna be a much needed lesson. Again, his obviously he intends to fight Kaido and he's gonna lose, and I think it's gonna be a much needed lesson for him, honest to God, or a much needed kick in the ass. That's really gonna show him what he's truly up against. Like obviously just seeing that was enough, but he needs to experience it. He really does, and yeah, he is going to experience it. So yeah, and yeah, we get so moving on, we get an added context that everyone pointed out last week, which is that we yeah, we get the added context that everyone pointed out was missing last week, which is that Kaido was basically drunk, like pretty much drunk during his entire rampage, and you could essentially call this whole thing him pretty much sobering up, which in itself is a little funny, but here's the thing, and I'm probably going to be in the minority among my manga reading peers with this, but I wish they had done this without him being drunk. I mean, I don't know how Toei would have even made it work, considering the moment last week of Kaido basically drowning himself in sake. But yeah, him being drunk was always the one thing about this part of Wano that took me out of it a bit. And it doesn't necessarily ruin anything, but it's just a part of it where it does make it slightly more difficult to take him seriously in the moment. Aside from like the only thing that keeps it going is the spectacle of it, and just seeing like how just his presence alone has such an impact on everyone. It's just kind of one of those things where I'm like, it's one of those things where I don't. It's one of those things, I suppose you could say, where I have this, or there was a moment where or just him being drunk, it took me out of it in the sense of I didn't want, in the sense where I could take him a little less, where it feels like pretty much like Prince Oda had basically sacrificed any sense of like legitimate threat for just a little bit of a gag. I wanted to feel like just that pure like urgency and fear from him, but because of the gag, it's like the gag kind of takes me a little bit out of that legitimate fear of Kaido, I guess you could say. Like it's a drunk dragon. Like what do you want me to say for that? But I mean, again, the spectacle is still there, and it does make me fear him on that sense. But it's just, yeah, the drunk dragon thing that always kind of took me out of it. Now, and I guess a minor thing to talk about in this episode is that we see Law refer to Kaido's crew as the Animal Kingdom pirates, and in the episode. And when I first heard that, I had to pause the episode for a moment in order to just do a little research and remind myself of something. And yeah, supposedly for anyone confused by that little mistranslation, that is actually not a mistranslation. That's the official Viz manga name of Kaido's crew, the Animal Kingdom pirates. Which, yeah, I'm just gonna keep calling them the Beast Pirates for convenience sake. But yeah, it's one of those. The more you know, I suppose. And in general, it's like the whole Beast Pirates thing. It isn't bad or anything, but it's just one of those things where it just kind of came out of nowhere. And I don't know if they've been referred to that in previous episodes, but yeah, I guess they've kind of switched up to using the Viz manga translation now, which again weird, but I can live with it. We also get a pretty interesting detail in this episode that from Shuru is Kinemon's wife, and I really like how with each moment that passes, and even though the episode itself and the pacing wasn't great, I do like how with each moment that passes through the episode and each small moment that small moment like that, the tension of the situation kind of builds on top of these moments, all leading into the essentially the final climactic moment where he shoots his fire breath. I especially like how Hawkins' lie was actually in some form or another an actual truth, as he basically set Kaido loose on the Straw Hats. But yeah, but yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and list to Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.